Brought to you by the 2014 Honda Civic, Canada's best-selling car 16 years in a row, and the official vehicle of the Toronto Blue Jays. And by Home Hardware, homeowners helping homeowners with expert advice.
Welcome to Seattle, Washington, and beautiful Safeco Field. And it has been a great 3 days here. The Canadian Blue Jay fans have come out in droves, and they started on Monday. 41,000 in attendance on Monday, and it was like a home game here for the Blue Jay fans. They come down from Vancouver, they come down from Calgary, and all places in between. We have met fans over the course of the 3 days, Pat, from everywhere in Western Canada.
We've had a great chance to visit with them in the hotel. We sat around late last night getting to know them. Very passionate about their Blue Jays, very passionate about the game of baseball, and they love coming down to Seattle and watching their team play.
Yeah, they sure do, and you can see it's only 2.5 hours north to Vancouver, and there's so many people from the Vancouver area, Surrey, White Rock. We have seen people from Abbotsford and of course from Victoria and Vancouver Island, and they have come from all over in Western Canada. They are proud of their team, and they're not afraid to show it. What they want right now is a win. They've lost the first 2 games in this ballpark. Let's take a look at the lineup for John Gibbons' Blue Jays, as the Blue Jays have lost 11-1 and 6-3 in the first 2 games. Top of the order, Jose Reyes, Melky Cabrera, then Jose Bautista. He's got a 5-game hit streak. He's 6 for 21. He's got a 13-game hit streak in this ballpark. He has always hit well. He's had a home run here in the opener on Monday night against Felix Hernandez. And then down in the 6th spot, Deanna Navarro. His last 20 games, he's hit well over 300. 7 extra base hits, 13 RBIs, and he is the DH tonight with Josh Tolley handling the pitcher, the knuckleballer, R.A. Dickey. And the Blue Jays are set to take on Sasha Iwakuma, who gets overlooked a lot, Pat, but he is a true ace-caliber pitcher.
Mariner starters in this series have given up just 2 runs in 13 innings. Mariner starters own an AL best 327 earned run average, and here's another one. Sasha Iwakuma. Since the start of July, Akuma has pitched at least 7 innings and 7 straight starts. This is his 5th appearance and 4th career start versus the Blue Jays. Blue Jays haven't hit him. They're hitting just 193 off of Iwakuma in their career, and he doesn't walk anybody. Look at that second to the bottom row there. 11 base on balls all season long from Iwakuma. He has given up more home runs than walks this year.
Absolutely. Terrific command from Iwakuma. Good defense in the outfield. It's actually Jackson and Chris Denorfia in right field for his 2nd consecutive game. Kyle Seager and Brad Miller. Miller back in at shortstop. The Gold Glover Robinson Cano signed a lucrative free agent contract. Logan Morrison has played first base throughout the series, and the young catcher Mike Zunino will handle Iwakuma here tonight.
And Dustin Ackley used to play second base, but with Robinson Cano, he's in the left field. He's done a great job for him. Made a nice catch to end the ball game last night. He hasn't made an error out in left field for him this season.
He really made a nice adjustment. He went back down to the minor leagues last year to start the process of playing in left field, and he looks very comfortable out in left. Another gorgeous night here in Seattle. It has been kind of rainy all afternoon, but the skies have cleared up and the roof is pushed back. Jose Reyes waiting on Iwakuma. He looks to be set, and Reyes will step in. Here's the first pitch of the game. Reyes cuts on it and pops it up over near the dugout, and that's going to be back into the seats out of play. And you could hear before the first pitch the Blue Jay fans saying, "Let's go Blue Jays."
They want to see anything offensively. It's just been so tough against the Seattle Mariner pitchers. They are tough, and it's another one tonight. Iwakuma doesn't overpower you with a fastball. And that's why Reyes was all over that first pitch he saw.
Iwakuma turned 33 years old in April. He's really in the prime of his career. His first season with Seattle was 2012. Pitched out of the bullpen initially and then moved into the rotation, and he has been a rock-solid starter ever since.
Blue Jays saw him that year, and he had a huge strikeout game in this ballpark.
13 strikeouts on the 30th of July 2012. He was matched up against Ricky Romero, whose 13 strikeouts came in just 8 innings. 2-1 to Reyes. There's that off-speed pitch. He's got a great splitter, and he'll throw them all for strikes.
When he gets to 2 strikes, he's going to use that splitter about half the time, and it is a dandy. Batter's hitting just 158 against him. Against that splitter, he'll mix in a curveball and a fastball, but when he gets to 2 strikes like he is right now, you might see it.
There it is. In the dirt, Reyes chases, and Iwakuma has his first strikeout of the night. Great split finger fastball.
I think the Blue Jays are going to have to be very disciplined, especially when they get to 2 strikes, like we were saying. Almost 50% of the time, half the time, he's going to use that splitter, and it's nasty. If it's low, you got to be disciplined enough to lay off of it. Watch the grip in his hand. You can see it right there. Traditional split finger. It tumbles towards the plate. Look at that thing go down.
Yeah, that is a true split finger pitch, and you can see those fingers split wide over the seams. Okay, Cabrera drills the first pitch, but it stays up and goes right to Austin Jackson. 2 up, 2 down very quickly, and Iwakuma, as he always does, throwing a lot of strikes, and he's got a wide assortment of pitches.
Yeah, he'll use the fastball 47% of the time. There's the splitter. That's the second most used pitch by Iwakuma this year. He's got a slider and a curveball. Doesn't throw it a whole lot, but you have to respect it. The best pitch to hit against is the fastball. You can see at 293. That's why Melky Cabrera jumped on that first pitch. The same with Jose Reyes. His fastball averages just 88, 89 miles an hour.
There's a fastball strike. There's that 88.
Yeah, he's got some movement on it. He puts it in a good spot. It's not very hard.
That slider backed up on him and missed inside. It's 1-1 to Bautista. Iwakuma started out his career pitching for the Kintetsu Buffalo in 2001 as a 20-year-old. He played there for 5 seasons, and then he was moved to Rakuten, the Golden Eagles. If you've heard the Golden Eagles before, that's because Masahiro Tanaka played there, and that's where he came from. Imagine Iwakuma and Tanaka in the same rotation in Japan.
I wouldn't want to, not as a hitter. Lots of splitters.
Bautista hits a weak grounder. Tough play for Miller. And he throws wide at first. Bautista never made a step towards second. And he's going to go to second base. That ball hit out of play in the camera well. So Bautista will have a base hit. He'll go to second on the air by the shortstop. And he'll get himself into scoring position.
This is the team that the Seattle Mariners came into this game with just 53 team errors, the fewest in the American League. Really no play right here from Miller. Backed up on that slider. Bautista has a chance to get an infield hit when the ball gets away from him. It's an infield hit for Bautista.
This has been a problem for Miller. It's his 15th error. And Lloyd McClendon out talking to the home plate umpire, Ben May, about where that ball hit. But each ballpark has different ground rules, and if it goes into that camera well and then bounces back out of play, it will be ruled dead. And Bautista was awarded second. So it's an error on the shortstop, an infield hit for Bautista. Adam Lind 0 for 3 in his return to the lineup last night. Lind struck out and grounded out twice. He missed 29 games with that broken foot. Lind is 0 for 3 against Iwakuma in their limited head-to-head matchups. Boy, this is a bat that Blue Jays sorely missed. No question about it, especially against right-handed pitching. Lind for the season when he came back was hitting .369 against right-handed pitching.
Well, he's been here before. He's a veteran. He's been here. He's had success at the big leagues, driving in runs, and he was having a good year offensively against righties.
Breaking ball, 2-0. Lynn's batting average 262 as we speak after the 0-4-3 last night. 4 homers and 27 RBIs for Lynn against right-handed pitching. Bautista at second. 2 outs. Well, you can wait and wait and wait and still be out in front of that splitter.
84 miles an hour, so it's not very hard, but it looks so inviting to swing at, and then it just drops. And he's not afraid to throw it 2-0. Threw it that time to Lynn in an RBI count.
Now it's 3-1. Deanna Navarro will be switch hitting DH tonight. He's on deck. Beautiful ballpark and a great shot from center field. They have opened up this stadium and really made it fan friendly. Fans can walk all the way around on the concourse and see the ball game from just about any place in this ballpark. Bouncing ball up the middle. Miller on the second base side makes the play, and the inning is over. So Miller makes an error and then makes a play to end the inning. Blue Jays get an infield hit and strand the base runner. R.A. Dickey will take them out when we come back to Seattle. Series, Austin Jackson top of the order, Dustin Ackley in the 2 spot, and Ackley has made a nice transition to left field, and since the break he's been a red hot hitter. He came to the Mariners as a good hitter out of college, and he's now starting to get his feet on the ground. A .323 average since the All-Star break with 12 extra base hits. Robinson Cano, Kendrys Morales his first home run last night, and then down in the 7th spot in the order. Logan Morrison has a 13-game hit streak, 15 for 45. That's a .333 clip with a homer and 6 RBIs. He's been a nice addition to this ball club and has taken over at first place with Justin Smoke, the incumbent, back down in AAA at Tacoma.
Might not have the power that they'd like from a first baseman. They're getting good at bats, though. R.A. Dickey was in line for the win in his last start before the Tigers came back late in that game and beat the Blue Jays. He threw 6 innings, gave up 2 earned runs. This is his former team he's facing, the Seattle Mariners. He is 4-2 in 11 appearances against his former team.
Dickey pitched here in 2008 for the Seattle Mariners. Spent just 1 season. Austin Jackson, a ball on the strike. Dickey made 14 starts for the Mariners in 2008. Of course, you look at that team. Felix Hernandez was a 22-year-old. He went 9-11. Jared Washburn was a starter. Carlos Silva, Miguel Batista, also one of the starting pitchers. There's a fly ball into the seats foul. Dickey went 5-8 with a .521 earned run average that year here in Seattle.
Wasn't a knuckleball pitcher at that time, was he?
Yeah, he was.
He was starting to become a knuckleball pitcher there.
He started in 2005, and when he got here, he had some experience with it. He made the transition in April of 2005. He was pitching with the Texas Rangers at that time. Buck Showalter was the manager. Oral Hershiser was the pitching coach. And Mark Connor was the bullpen coach. And they called him into the office in April. He was rehabbing an arm injury and said, when you get done rehabbing, we want you to go to the minors and learn how to throw the knuckleball.
One of the guys who really helped him is sitting out in the bullpen. Well, not out in the bullpen. He's the pitching coach for the Seattle Mariners. It's Rick Waits when he was in New York. Rick Waits helped him out a lot to keep that knuckleball online.
There's a base hit through the left side. Austin Jackson, a leadoff single. Let's take a look at the Blue Jays defense tonight. Melky Cabrera has been a horse in left field all year long. He has played terrific. He's played more games than anybody in the majors. Colby Rasmus is in center. Jose Bautista is in right. Francisco's back at third. Reyes and Kawasaki up the middle. Lynn starting at first base tonight. Josh Tolley behind the plate for the Gold Glover. R.A. Dickey.
July 3rd was Adam Lynn's last start at first base. He did take over for Edwin Encarnacion on July the 5th when Edwin had to leave that ball game out in Oakland. So it's the first time that Adam has put that glove on for the Blue Jays since July.
Dustin Ackley had a big hit in the game last night. Opposite field, 2-run single in the 5th off Jay Happ. That made a 2-1 lead into a 4-1 lead, and that was really all that the Mariners would need at that point.
With their pitching staff. He also had a big hit off of R.A. Dickey last year.
There's a flare into center. Rasmus got a good break, and Jackson hustles back. Rasmus made a wide throw, but Lynn was able to run it down. So 1 out. Colby made a nice catch, you can see. Sorry, Lindy. I know you're back at first for the first time, and I was making an errant pass.
Lindy had to recover on that one. Catches that one. Sees Jackson's about halfway. Thinks he has a shot. He's going to throw it on the run, but it tails on him.
Robinson Cano, the second baseman. Jackson at first. Of course, it's always a concern with the knuckleball that stolen base might factor in. Jackson has 10 steals this season.
R.A. Dickey does a really good job of delivering the ball quickly to home plate, giving Josh Tolley a chance to throw out that runner. I'm watching Jackson. He's getting a very big secondary lead just in case that ball gets away.
There's a liner into center. Rasmus, a much easier play this time. Cano hit it hard, but right to Rasmus. 2 down. Kendrys Morales, switch hitting DH. Morales had a big game last night. Hit his first home run as a Mariner since coming back to Seattle. Second home run of the season. Morales had a double in the game as well. 2 outs. Boy, that's a good pickoff move right there. He was quick and right on the money. Down and in.
You can see how R.A. varies his times to home plate right there. He quick pitched him.
You see that guy at first base. He looks familiar. That's Chris Woodward, who was a Blue Jay for a long time. He is in his first year coaching in the majors. He's at first base for Lloyd McClendon. Woody's just 37 years old. He got a jump start on his coaching career. He still could play, in great shape. Ball and a strike, 2 outs. Obviously in this ballpark, with Jackson at first, ball into the gaps, he's got a chance to score on an extra base hit. Lots of room in the outfield here. Fouled off the glove of Tony. You might see him run now with 2 strikes. Just take a gamble, see if you can't get Jackson into scoring position. You got Morales behind in the count 1-2.
And if he happens to make an out, no big deal. If he gets thrown out at second base, Morales starts next inning with a clean slate.
Not running. There's a high fly ball to right. Bautista looking up. This ball is gone. Kendrys Morales with his second home run in as many games. A 2-run homer. Boy, he tomahawked that pitch. It looked like it was up out of the zone.
It's been a problem. 20 home runs given up coming up into this ball game for R.A. Dickey, and right away, ball that is up. It's a knuckleball. Yeah, it is up, and he stayed on top of that one and hit it into the stands.
That's the one problem with that knuckleball. That thing is shoulder high, and he was able to stay on top of it. But boy, if you square it up, it'll fly. There's no resistance on that ball because it doesn't have any spin. And you hit it flush, and it'll go. 2-0 Seattle. Kyle Seager, boy, he's a good-looking player. Seager with a 2-hit night last night. He had a sacrifice fly in the opener on Monday and walked twice.
He can do it with the bat and the glove. He's a good fielder. We were talking about him last night when we were talking about the defense. Only Evan Longoria has fewer errors at third base for starting third baseman who's played at least 90 games.
This is his 115th start. He's committed just 8 errors. Dickey a little bit quick for Seager. Now he's set 2-1. There's a strike. Seager certainly doesn't get the recognition nationally for his skills, but at 26 years old, he has emerged into one of the premier everyday third basemen. All-star this season. Upstairs, it's a full count. Kristen Orphy is on deck, the right fielder. Austin Jackson had a leadoff single, and 2 outs later, Kendrys Morales hit a 2-run home run. Ball 4. Seager takes a 2-out walk.
Blue Jays on Sportsnet. Brought to you by the 2014 Honda Civic, Canada's best-selling car 16 years in a row, and the official vehicle of the Toronto Blue Jays.
Beautiful evening in Seattle. Ferry out on Puget Sound. Kristen Orphy, the right fielder, takes the first pitch straight. Orphy was required by Seattle to give them a little more consistent at bats. He's a veteran that's been around a bit. Big cut. He swung right through it.
Those are the kind of swings right there that if you're R.A. Dickey, that's who you want to see hitting. Guys with long, wild swings like that. People like Kendrys Morales, Austin Jackson's, they have those short swings. They can wait a lot longer on that knuckleball.
Shortened up right there and was able to foul it off. Orphy is now 34 years old. Started out his career in Cincinnati with the Reds. Played 2 years in Cincinnati, a couple of years in Oakland, and the past 5 seasons he was in San Diego. And he pokes that one through the right side. A good short stroke with 2 strikes. He gets himself a 2-out single.
How about the change in Denorfia once he got to 2 strikes? How he shortened it up and let that ball travel just a little bit more when he got to 2 strikes. Remember the swing he had where he swung and missed, almost fell down. This one very under control, no movement in the lower half, just use your hands. Keeps the inning alive.
Now, with the addition of Kendrys Morales, Austin Jackson, and Kristen Orphy, you would expect that the Mariners will be able to improve their run scoring ability. Logan Morrison with that 13-game hit streak. Josh Tolley couldn't locate it, and the base runners will move up. Tolley knocked it down. He wasn't sure where it was. It was right near the batter's box, and when he turned around, turned his back to the field, the base runners moved up.
He had to go to the backhand right there, and once it hit off of his glove, he was looking for it into the backstop, but it hit the home plate umpire Ben May. Couldn't locate it, and they move up.
There's a good knuckleball. It tied up Logan Morrison. Morrison was in Miami with the Marlins, and of course Dickey pitching for the Mets. Logan Morrison has 5 hits and 17 at bats against Dickey, and he's got the kind of approach that can be effective against a knuckleball.
Very simple approach and use the whole field. He's got a nice swing. He can drive the ball to left center field.
There's a drive to Bautista. He comes in, and the inning is over, but Kendrys Morales has homered for a second consecutive game, and the Mariners have taken a 2-0 lead after 1. Cover every angle of the Toronto Blue Jays. Breaking news, photos, videos, and tweets. The Blue Jays Rundown only on Sportsnet.ca. And the Rundown headline today, Blue Jays claim left-handed pitcher Colt Hines from the LA Dodgers. He'll be assigned to AAA Buffalo, and Alex Anthopoulos continues to add assets to his organization. Nobody out. Yanner Navarro will start things off. Navarro, Rasmus, and Kawasaki here. Navarro goes after the first pitch, hits it to the shortstop. 1 pitch, 1 out here in the second. Well, there are a lot of Blue Jay fans in attendance, and they're right now telling our Auntie Gil, we're sorry, but we're cheering for the Blue Jays. Go Jays, go. And there are a lot of Blue Jay fans here. They're all over. They've come from all different parts of Western Canada. And they have been all over town, and they have been happy to say hello.
Smart fans. You want to get on our broadcast, you better mention our names.
That'll always work. Colby Rasmus. Rasmus is 0 for 11 against Iwakuma. He has no problems with King Felix, but he hasn't been able to hit Iwakuma.
I asked him today what he sees about King Felix. He says, I can see the ball when he's throwing that changeup. And he's a low ball hitter. And King Felix Hernandez throws the ball down. This should be a good matchup for Colby, you would think.
Yeah. Iwakuma pitches in his wheelhouse downstairs. Late movement takes it off the plate. It's 2-1. Blue Jays are 3-8 in their last 11 after winning 9 of 10. And it's been a roller coaster ride for him all year long. Right back up the middle, and Miller from the outfield grass. What an arm. Well, that's what's intriguing to the Mariners about Brad Miller. He committed kind of a careless error in the first inning, throwing a ball he shouldn't have thrown, his 15th there, and then he makes a play like this.
How about the arm strength? Up the middle, good range, soft hands, the awareness to spin and get something on that. Plus, he can hit. He gets up there. He doesn't get cheated. But you're right. They want to see a little bit more consistency defensively. But he's a young kid playing a very important position.
24 years old, the former second-round pick. He's got great range and wants the arm. From the outfield grass, he throws it on the money. Made it look easy.
Colby gets robbed one more time. Great play right here, the slow motion play. He's not going to have time to spin the other way. He's got to go all the way around. That sets him up, gets his feet in position, closes up that front shoulder.
Robinson Cano, the second baseman. Easy inning for Iwakuma. His team puts him up in front 2-0. He needs just 8 pitches to retire the side in order in the second. Shirt giveaway will take place Sunday, August 31st when the Blue Jays take on the New York Yankees. Game time is 1:07 p.m. First 20,000 fans in the Rogers Center will receive a Blue Jays long sleeve baseball shirt. Call the Jays for tickets at 416-341-1234 or log online at BlueJays.com and get your tickets for August 31st. The Blue Jays will give away a long sleeve baseball shirt. Also, we've told you before, that'll be the final trip for Derek Jeter into Rogers Center as a player. Yankees will be there for the entire weekend, 29, 30, 31st of August. That'll be their last trip at Rogers Center all season long, so make sure you get your tickets. Mike Zunino, interesting young power hitter. He's got 36 extra base hits. This is his first full season in the majors. Zunino getting his first look at the knuckleball. Had his 5-game hit streak snapped last night. He went 0 for 3 in that ball game. Nicky strikes him out. That's the first strikeout of the night. He gets the catcher to start the inning.
I asked Josh Jolie today, I said, can you tell if R.A. Dickey has his knuckleball, his good knuckleball? And he said, yes. I said, when? He said, it's usually in the first inning. I can tell if he's got the one that's really going to be moving. Tonight, he said the conditions are perfect for a knuckleball that should be moving. all around the strike zone. That time he gets his first strikeout with an elevated knuckleball. So he can tell early on if he's got that good one.
That's interesting. We have seen Dickey find it in the middle innings, but Josh Tolley's got the best perspective. Brad Miller batting just 201. But Miller has been a good hitter throughout his minor league career. In the minors, he hit .334 over the course of 219 games. So they expect him to hit.
Tell you what, he is not going to get cheated up there. Ball's behind here. Stays alive, 0-2.
There's that slow knuckleball. A year ago on August 13th, Brad Miller hit 2 home runs at Tampa Bay against the Rays. Interesting part of that was that both Miller, who was leading off for Seattle, and Zobrist leading off for Tampa Bay, homered in their first at bats. There's a drive to Bautista over to his right, makes a nice sliding catch. 2 outs here in the second.
Couple balls hit hard now to right field by Bautista, and he got good jumps on him. He's played a great right field this year.
You can see the concentration, and then he just uses that slide to break his momentum. She caught the ball before it hit the ground, but it was a fine running catch. Austin Jackson takes a first pitch strike.
Those kind of plays like that, you got to look it right into your glove. Bautista, as he goes over, you can see he's got those long finger gloves. That's his glove too, isn't it? It doesn't open like a regular infielder's glove. You want the long length and that ball to go in there and stick.
Now Jose has helped design that outfield glove. It's a Marucci glove, the company that makes all of the bats. They have got into the glove making business as well. Dickey threw that fastball up and in, and Jackson had to bail out. There's a fly ball into center. Colby Rasmus over in the alley gets there and makes the catch. 3 up, 3 down for Dickey in the second. Now the Blue Jays got to figure it out. Iwakuma. Has really been on a roll. You go back to his last 8 starts. Impressive numbers across the board.
Opponents hitting just .209 against him. He's lost 2 games, both of those games to the Baltimore Orioles with their very good offense. You know what he's doing? He's giving length to Lloyd McClendon. He's pitching deep into the ball game, and he's giving that bullpen time to rest and making the job of Lloyd McClendon a lot easier.
7 straight starts of 7 innings or more for Iwakuma. Juan Francisco batting 8th tonight. Swings right through that first pitch. Seattle, like all the other teams that pitched to Francisco, utilizing that dramatic shift. Only one defender on the left side of the infield. That's the shortstop, Brad Miller. Kyle Seager has moved to straightaway second, and that is Robinson Cano out in shallow right.
And they can play very deep. Anything on the ground. Francisco doesn't run that well, but they can take their time and make the play over at first base.
Everything away from Francisco. Francisco had a big double in last night's game. Hit it off the wall in straightaway center. There's that split grip. Missed with it.
Better patience so far. Adam Lynn had some patience against that splitter with 2 strikes. Got to make him bring it up.
Francisco strikes out. 1 down. Let's check in with Jamie Campbell. Jamie, what did they play? 7 innings?
2 hours.
2 hours and 7 minutes. What's up with that? That's an old-fashioned game right there. Kansas City, boy, they are playing with confidence right now, aren't they?
They are getting the pitching. You better get the lead on them, or they will shut you down with that bullpen.
Well, John Lester beat him yesterday, and the only 2 games that the Royals have lost recently, Lester beat him both times. But they bounced back behind Vargas. They got a good team.
They play defense. They pitch it, and they're starting to hit now. Moustakas is starting to hit.
Well, they lost Eric Hosmer.
Yeah, no Hosmer, right?
Billy Butler's been playing first base. Josh Willingham was the DH tonight. They just acquired Willingham. Omar Infante had a couple of RBIs. He hitting in the 2 spot, and Sal Perez hitting 3rd. So they've got to juggle their lineup a bit. Vargas, 9 innings, 3 hits, no walks, 4 strikeouts, 2 hours and 6 minutes. 9 full innings. Well, the Tigers are having their problems of late. They, like the Blue Jays, had some hangover from that long game on Sunday. They won tonight, but the Royals have a half-game lead over the Tigers. The Tigers beat Pittsburgh in Detroit tonight as they have that home-and-home 4-game series, 2 in each city. 1-2. Totally fights it off and stays alive. See, now that's how you do it. All you got to do is put our name up there and we'll put you on TV. We promise.
Throw in the maple leaf there. That's good. Okay, but put our names on there. We'll get you on TV.
And we're glad you're here. A ball and 2 strikes. Dolly hits it into left center. Jackson got a good break and covers the ground. 2 down. This is a very good defensive team, and the addition of Austin Jackson really stabilizes the outfield defense.
It was almost like the perfect piece for this team. They needed another right-handed bat, and they needed a little bit more balance because they have so many left-handed hitters. They needed a center fielder, someone who could cover the ground and then hit leadoff for it. And Lloyd McClendon had a history with them.
McClendon was the hitting coach for Jackson with the Tigers. Reyes drills it down the right side. It's a low liner that's off the wall. He hustles around first, headed for second. Here's the throw from Denorfian, not in time. A line drive bullet off the fence in right field. A 2-out double for Reyes. His 24th.
We have been seeing this for about the last couple of weeks from Jose Reyes. He's seeing the ball because he steps into that batter's box. In the first pitch he sees, the first good pitch, he is all over it. That's a ball down and in. That's a perfect place for him. He just drops the head of the bat hits a laser off the wall and then hustles into scoring position.
2 outs now. Melky Cabrera will step in. Mariners have a 2-0 lead. Cabrera goes after the first pitch. It's deflected off the glove of the pitcher. Cano is there to throw out his former teammate. Iwakuma gets around the 2-out double. We go to the bottom of the third. Mariners lead it. Blue Jays, and if you ever come down from Vancouver or Western Canada, make sure you stop by the Pacific Northwest Baseball Hall of Fame. It's right here in the ballpark, and it makes a good display of all the great history of baseball here in the Northwest. The Vancouver Mounties, of course. Victoria had a team, and there's the Mounties, played in the Pacific Coast League for so many years. Pacific Coast League was quite a league. Oftentimes, players that played in the Coast League were reluctant to go to the major leagues because you played in Los Angeles, Hollywood, San Francisco, Oakland, Seattle, Vancouver, and Tacoma. Nobody wanted to leave.
Wasn't Hawaii?
Hawaii was in it for a while after some of the teams got major league teams.
Right.
But San Diego had a team for a long time. Yeah.
You know, we know all about the Pacific Coast League from our colleague
Jerry Howard.
Yeah,
he tells us all the time. Vancouver, just 2.5 hours north of Seattle. And they had a great rivalry when they were both in the Coast League. Of course, it was the Seattle Rainiers and the Vancouver Mounties. And then the Seattle Pilots were the expansion team in 1969. There's a line drive down the left field line. That's a foul ball. Justin Ackley making a bid for extra bases.
You pitch that guy away, Ackley, and he'll slap that ball the other way. You mentioned it. He had the big hit in last night's ball game off of Jay Happ. 2-out single to left field.
That was in the 5th inning. He drove in 2 runs and made it a 4-1 game. This is a hot team right now, playing with a lot of confidence.
Playing well here at home. They're trying to finish off a 9-game homestand with just 1 loss.
Ackley will take the leadoff walk. When you talk about baseball in the Pacific Northwest, you might not really think about major league players that were born in the state of Washington, but when you look at the list, there's some pretty good players.
Well, let's see. Ryan Sandberg, he's a Hall of Famer. He's pretty good. John Olerud, he won a batting title. He had a great career. Lyle Overbay's still playing. John Lester's going to get paid this offseason. And Tim Lincecum's got a no-hitter this year.
Tim Lincecum's won 2 Cy Young Awards, and then again all of the great Canadian players from British Columbia. Justin Morneau, Larry Walker, Brett Lawrie, Jeff Francis. There have been a host of great major leaguers come out of BC as well. So the Pacific Northwest well represented in baseball. Robinson Cano flied out to center his first time up. We mentioned Dickey pitched here for Seattle in 2008, and it was a tough season for the Mariners. They were 61 and 101. John McLaren started out as a manager that season. He was let go in June. Jim Riggleman took over, but it was a tough season. Kenji Jojima was the catcher for the Mariners. Richie Sexton, Jose Lopez, Yuniesky Betancourt, Adrian Beltre was the third baseman. But it was a tough year. 61 wins.
They've run on some tough times lately. They have not made the playoffs since 2001. That was the year they tied the major league record with 116 wins. They haven't had a winning record since 2009.
Cano waits on it. Glenn gets it. Goes to second for one. Back to first. Dickey's there and can't make the catch. The ball bounces off the wall. Throw was a little bit behind Dickey, but it looked like a ball that he could catch. He's a terrific fielder. Got to the bag in good time, but all they can get is that force at second.
When you've got a team down, you've got to make plays. It doesn't look like a bad throw. It's tailing a little bit, but you can see R.A. got his feet tangled up a little bit. They're a little bit too close together, and he wasn't able to step to the throw.
There'd be no error on play. Obviously, you can't assume a double play. Lind snow coned that ball. Made a good throw to second. He didn't really have a good grip on it, but by the time he makes the throw, he rotated that ball and made a good strong throw to Reyes. Kendrys Morales hit a homer, and now he's got another base hit. Looks like extra bases. Cano is around second, headed for third. Morales will stop at first. Kendrys Morales looks like he's got his stroke working now. Morales homered last night in the 6th inning.
Well, what makes it special, he's a switch hitter. This is from the right side, deep to left field. His first home run as a Mariner since being reacquired. Now he steps over to the other batter's box and gets on top of that high knuckleball and drives it into the seats in right field. Doesn't run like he did before he broke his leg. That ball would have been a double right there, but he is swinging the bat and driving in some big runs for him.
He broke his leg in 2010 while he was playing with the Angels. Kyle Seager walked his first time up. Boy, that double play ball now certainly looms large. They couldn't turn the double play, and Cano was able to reach on the fielder's choice.
You know, that's what we were just talking about. When you're facing tough teams like that, hot teams like the Seattle Mariners, they give you an out. You have to take advantage of it. Good major league teams, you give them those extra chances and they take advantage of it.
Ball and a strike to Seager.
And Seager is such a clutch player too. He leads this team with 2-out RBIs this year. He's got 27. He's just got that knack for coming up with big hits.
On the ground, Kawasaki to Reyes, back to first, double play. Dickey was able to get the ball on the ground, and the infield took care of it. Mariners leave a base runner. We'll go to the 4th. Seattle has a 2-0 lead. Sportsnet.ca's MLB insiders cover every angle of the Toronto Blue Jays. Right now, you can check out a great article on Jose Bautista. Sportsnet Arden Swelling explains why he's so valuable. There's a lot more to Jose Bautista than just home runs. Bautista, he's everything for the Blue Jays, but is it enough? And he has had a great season. Every aspect of his play has been consistent.
Plays a great right field. He's always in the game, and you can watch him when he gets on base. He's always thinking of a way to advance. Maybe disrupt the pitcher a little bit. Maybe try to get the catcher thinking about him stealing a base. He stole a big base in New York that helped them win a game against the Yankees.
Bautista bends back from that pitch up and in. He had a couple up and in from Chris Young in last night's game. This is popped up. Right fielder Chris Denorfia. It's there, 1 out. Let's check in with Jamie Campbell. J.P. Arencibia getting an inning of work, gave up a hit, and we are told he used a knuckleball. He probably remembered what it was like trying to catch R.A. Dickey and said, you know what, I'm going to throw it. It's hard to catch. Maybe I can throw it.
Every player thinks they have a knuckleball.
Everybody does.
Don't they?
Yeah. We all throw them. How about Adam Jones and Wayne Kirby?
Oh,
every day before they take the field, they play catch with a knuckleball.
And what do they try to do?
Hit each other in the chest.
or wrist burners. Every day.
Isn't that the truth, though? Every infielder, every position player thinks they can throw a knuckleball.
Best knuckleball I saw from a non-pitcher, Wade Boggs.
Adam Lynn has his first hit, returning to the lineup. Well, these two teams are in contention for a wild card berth. The Angels have good grip on that first spot. Tigers are currently in the second wild card spot. Mariners are half game back. Blue Jays are 2.5 back. The Yankees, losing tonight, have fallen to 3.5 back. Lloyd McClendon's team and the Blue Jays will play the second to last series of the season at Rogers Center, a 4-game series. Seattle will be at Rogers Center, and then they come back to finish the season all the way out here on the West Coast. They'll have a weekend series against the Angels, and that will have implications as far as the wild card as well.
Their last road trip, the Seattle Mariners, is a crusher for them. That stop in Toronto, that's a third stop on a 3-city road trip.
Well, there's close cities, though. It's an easy trip. It's really not that big a deal.
Yeah, right.
Los Angeles, Houston, and then Toronto. They might as well be playing in London.
And then flying all the way back here to face Los Angeles for the last 3 days of the season without an off day.
Yeah, and that's going to be a tough swing because they start playing on September 12th. Home series here against Oakland. Then they go to Anaheim and play the Angels for 4. Go to Houston, play a weekend series for 3, and then Toronto for 4.
With no off days. Their last off day is the 11th.
The final game in Toronto on Thursday, September 25th, will be a day game, so they'll get a little bit of a break in travel. And they'll get back here to the West Coast, and then they'll play the Angels.
Maybe they'll be worn out by the time they get to Toronto for that 4-game series, and the Blue Jays can sweep them.
You don't believe that?
Yeah, I do.
No, you don't. They've got too good a pitching to be worn out.
It'll be a big series, I think.
And they got an interesting month. They play Oakland 6 times in the month of September. Texas and Houston, they're all in their division. And then they've got the Angels for 7 games the last 2 weeks of the season. 3-1 to Navarro. Fly ball to left. Dustin Ackley is there, and Navarro's retired. 2 down. Lind with his first hit since coming off the disabled list. He was 0 for 3 last night and grounded out to start this game. He picks up a base hit. Colby Rasmus was robbed of a base hit in the second on a nice play by the shortstop Brad Miller. Blue Jays will have an off day tomorrow. They'll spend it in Chicago and then pick up on Friday with a series against the White Sox, 3-gamer. And then they'll have another off day on Monday. They'll spend that off day in Chicago before they move to Milwaukee for a Tuesday-Wednesday 2-game series, and then come home for a Friday night series against Tampa Bay.
But first, another off day after Milwaukee.
Ball in the dirt. Zunino blocks it. It's 2-0. Colby Rasmus, of course, he's got home run power. Colby's got 15 home runs. And you mentioned the fact that he should be in a good matchup with Iwakuma, the way he throws everything down in the zone.
Down, his fastball's down, his splitter's down, slider, everything's down. He's given up 7 home runs to left-handers this year.
There's a ball hit into right field. Lind will stop at second. Colby Rasmus has hit the ball hard twice tonight. We'll take a look at the month of August to see who's really picked up ground, who's lost ground in the wild card race. Who's hot in August? Well, we know the Royals are hot. They won again tonight. Seattle's right behind them. The Orioles, they're not going to lose, it looks like. They just continue to win. And the Blue Jays, they're the other side of that picture, 3-8 in their last 11 games. So there's going to be a lot of ground gained and lost in the last 6 weeks of this season.
Yeah, even the wins have been tough to come by for the Blue Jays. They've had to come back against Detroit a couple of times where it could have been worse.
Munenori Kawasaki takes a first pitch strike. Kawasaki and Iwakuma played in the same league in Japan, the Japanese Pacific League. Kawasaki played for Fukuoka and Iwakuma played for Rakuten. That ball gets away from Zunino. He's not sure where it is. Lind will stop at third base. Rasmus moves into second. It's a wild pitch charge to Iwakuma.
Been watching Zunino. He's had trouble on these splitters that are down. That time he tries to block it, tries to keep it in front of him, but it glances off the heel of his glove. Just try and smother it.
We had mentioned what great control Iwakuma has. That's the first wild pitch he's thrown all season. That speaks volumes about the catchers as well, because that splitter is going to be in the dirt a lot, and they have kept it in front. Kawasaki now with a 1-1 count. Way inside. 2 balls and a strike. Well, Blue Jays have been needing a big hit, something to turn the momentum in their favor. They've actually had leads in both of the first 2 games of this series and have lost them both. Tonight they've fallen behind. Maybe this will be the night they can pick up a W.
Come back. Small leads. 1 run.
Kawasaki tried to check his swing. Dale Scott down at third, so he went around.
He can't believe it either. He thought he held up on that one. He wound up, and it looked like he was going to let it go.
Well, that's a good call by the umpire.
Yeah, just swing.
That's a tough one. That's probably the toughest call an umpire has to make, that check swing. Two and two, 2 outs. Another ball in the dirt. This one smothered by Zunino.
Good job by the Blue Jays since that first inning. Lay off that splitter. It's not a strike. If you could recognize it out of his hand, he doesn't throw it for a called strike. He gets a lot of his strikeouts on swings and misses on balls in the dirt.
Iwakuma taking his time now. Seattle has a 2-0 lead. Full count to Kawasaki. He strikes out. Iwakuma strikes out Kawasaki. The Blue Jays leave a pair. Third strikeout of the night. 2-0 Seattle. In 1996 on the University of Tennessee. He pitched with Texas until 2006. Came to Seattle in 2008, went to Minnesota in 2009. Really developed in 2010 and won the Cy Young in New York with the Mets in 2012. And he has been here. This is his second year with the Blue Jays. 5 different big league clubs for R.A. Dickey. He was a first-round pick, as we mentioned, in 96. And the July 22nd cover of Baseball America had the U.S. Olympic team pitchers, all 5 pitchers on the cover. And a Texas Rangers trainer, Danny Wheat, noticed that R.A. Dickey's elbow was at an odd angle. And that prompted them to put Dickey through a physical, and they found out he had no ligament in his right elbow. Nobody knew what happened. Nobody knew if there was an injury prior to that. But he didn't have the ligament. So his signing bonus went from $810,000 to $75,000. And Dickey took a very philosophical approach to it. He said, I never had the 810, so I ended up with a $75,000 bonus, and he's been a very good major league pitcher for a long time.
And he made that money back for sure. I mean, he developed the hard work, perseverance. He went down, figured out the knuckleball, got back to the big leagues, won the Cy Young, got the big contract. Not pitching for the money.
Dickey's done a lot of good things off the field, especially after his success in New York, and he has done a lot of charitable work and raised awareness in a couple of different countries. He travels, takes his family abroad. Logan Morrison waves at that knuckler. In April of 2005, we had mentioned that Dickey was rehabbing an arm injury, and his manager, Buck Showalter, and the pitching coach, Earl Hershiser, suggested, hey, you got to do good knuckleball. He was messing with the knuckleball. He said, we want you to try to develop that knuckleball. And Dickey said the session he spent with Charlie Huff late in the 05 season was probably the most important session of his career. Charlie Huff met him in Anaheim, and they spent about an hour and a half together in the bullpen in Anaheim, and that's where he really got the basics of the knuckleball from one of the best. That's where Charlie Huff identified the grip. He said, you're holding the ball wrong, and he made the adjustments. Dickey also sought out a couple other knuckleballers, Phil Niekro and Tim Wakefield. And Dickey said all three of them had an impact. And there's the grip and the suggestion of Charlie Huff. You got the wrong grip, son.
From the runway to the top of the C. The top of the C is that horseshoe, if you will, in the baseball along the seams there. It doesn't actually grip the seams as he picks up another strikeout. It's right underneath it. He digs those nails right in there and then pushes the ball with his fingers.
This is the second season for RA here with the Blue Jays, and you look at the numbers through 25 starts, they're almost identical. He's got a better ERA this season. Opponents' average is down. The whip is the same, and the home runs, he has given up fewer home runs, but he's having another very consistent season, and he's given the Blue Jays the innings. If you look at R.A. Dickey's career, probably the spike in his career was 2012 when he won the Cy Young.
That was the spike because the year before the Cy Young and the year after the Cy Young, he lost 13 games each year.
Well, it's certainly a temperamental pitch, that's for sure. This is popped up over near the seats. Lind is over. He's on the track. He leans over, makes the catch. Adam Lind makes the catch to end the inning. 3 up, 3 down. We'll go to the fifth. Mariners lead at 2-0. Now it's time for Blue Jays Central Update. Here's Jamie Campbell and Greg Zahn. Listen to live audio, follow games pitch by pitch, and enjoy in-game video highlights. The app is available on the iPhone, iPad, iPod Touch, Android, and BlackBerry. Season-long subscription packages are available. Visit BlueJays.com for more details. Well, Major League Baseball will vote on a new commissioner tomorrow. And there are 3 candidates. Tom Winter, part of the ownership group for the Boston Red Sox. Tim Rosner in MLB Multimedia, and he has been involved in baseball and advancing the TV and media awareness of baseball. And then Rob Manfred, who has been the lieutenant for Bud Selig for a number of years, and he has done a terrific job. He's probably the lead guy on the drug program. He's probably done more work on that individually, and they're all legitimate candidates, and there are some very powerful owners that really have a lot of power over the rest of the group. Jerry Reinsdorf, the chairman of the Chicago White Sox, Artie Moreno of the Angels, and John Henry of the Red Sox, probably the most influential of the ownerships groups right now.
So are you saying there's some politics involved here, just trying to get their guy
and you
there?
know it. It's an election. Anytime you have an election, everybody has their own interests at heart. But baseball obviously has been in great hands for a long time with Bud Selig, and he will stepped down in January, so they have to come up with a successor.
He has advanced the ball, I think,
hasn't he?
in baseball.
And Bud certainly took a lot of heat early on. Speaking of heat, Iwakuma blows it right by Juan Francisco, who has struck out twice tonight.
Just when you're looking for that splitter, he can reach back about 93 this time, upstairs with that fastball, and Francisco swings right through it. Just a little bit tardy as you see that ball flying.
You know, Bud Selig was the owner of the Milwaukee Brewers, and he was appointed to take over the commissioner's office, and it took him, what, about 2.5 years before they made it permanent. And when he first moved into office, there were all the jokes about Bud Light and what's he going to brew. He's an owner, you know, and all of that. But he has advanced baseball dramatically.
Yes.
You just think about what we're talking about tonight. The wild card. Second wild card has turned things into a situation where there's so many teams involved. Everybody's looking at the races.
I remember him talking about that when they were introducing that, and he was going to take some criticism for it from some of the baseball traditionalists, but I think it's made some excitement in baseball. It's got other cities involved as Tolley lines out. How about the advancement on the internet of baseball? I remember when Bud Selig started talking about that for the first time. He says it's going to open up a whole new avenue for the game of baseball, and he was right.
Well, the internet, the social media, the WBC, the World Baseball Classic, the international draft, and you know, just about everything he's done has turned into gold for baseball. Bud was my owner when I played for the Brewers in Milwaukee, and he's a baseball fan. There's no question about that. He calls Hank Aaron one of his best friends, and Hank Aaron, of course, was playing for the Milwaukee Braves when Bud was growing up in Milwaukee. But he's done a great job, and he will be missed.
Best part about him being the commissioner? Work stoppage.
Yeah.
None.
They've had no work stoppages. That's the best. 1994, of course, and that was the year that Montreal was leading the baseball world. They had a 6-game lead over Atlanta. And the season was canceled. No World Series. I guess you could say another black mark on his resume is the All-Star game that was in a tie. And that created a lot of controversy.
But born from that, home field advantage for the for the World Series came from that.
Reyes reaches for it, pokes it to Cano, throws over his shoulder inside. Nobody does that better, but Logan Morrison couldn't hang on to it. Morrison tried to scoop it and couldn't close the glove on it, so Reyes reaches. Cano going directly away from first gets enough on the throw, but it's just a short hop that Morrison can't pull out of the dirt.
Looks like it hit right off the end of his glove. But you're right, Cano is so smooth going to his right, backhanding, and has that arm strength to fire it across his body over to first base.
Is he the best second baseman in baseball?
You know what? Got a lot of respect for Dustin Pedroia, but if I had to pick a second baseman who I would want, I would think I'd take Robinson Cano.
Yeah, you're probably right. He hits well over 300. He's a 300 career hitter. Gold Glove defender. Terrific range, strong arm, fearless on the double play. Of course, Pedroia's all of those things too.
Yep.
But Pedroia has been hampered by injuries the last couple of years. First he broke his foot, and now he's got that thumb injury that's not healed effectively.
It's so close because they're both great players. But they both have great presence in the clubhouse and on the field, and they make everybody around them better. If there's one better, I'd like to know it.
A few years ago, there were a few of them that were in that category. When you talk about Brett Boone and Brian Sandberg and Chase Utley in his prime, they were all offensively oriented second basemen. But Cano's the whole package. 0-2 to Cabrera.
Best second baseman I ever saw was Roberto Alomar. I played with Ryan Sandberg. I played with Manny Trio. I played with Frank White. But the best I ever saw was Roberto Alomar. Cano is close. Cano doesn't steal bases like Robbie did, and he didn't have the great range that Robbie had.
And Robbie in his rightful spot in the Hall of Fame. 1-2, 2 outs. Ground ball, Cano. Gets handcuffed a bit, but still has the ability to make that play. Melky is thrown out. Blue Jays get a 2-out hit, strand the base runner. We go to the bottom of the 5th, 2-0 Seattle. Blue Jays baseball partnership and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form. And the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of Rogers Blue Jays baseball partnership. Gorgeous evening in the Seattle area, Puget Sound, and the ferries going back and forth. This is a beautiful part of the world. It is a sister city of Vancouver, of course, and they're very similar in their geography, the way they're surrounded by water. Two of the most beautiful cities in North America.
Ran into a fan today with a Mariners jersey on in the lobby of the hotel, and said he was from Canada and he's a big Blue Jays fan. And I said, well, why in the world do you have a Mariners jersey on? He says, it's reverse psychology. I go, what are you talking about? He goes, last 2 nights I've been wearing my Blue Jays jersey and they lost, so I'm wearing my Mariners jersey, so the Blue Jays are going to win tonight.
Brad Miller pops it into the seats down the left side. I tell you what, they are passionate, the Blue Jay fans that travel around, and it's not only in Vancouver, it's probably the best turnout when they're here in Seattle, but a lot of people will come from all over Western Canada. But we also see a lot of fans in Minnesota, a lot of fans in Cleveland, Detroit, Boston, New York. They travel well. They love their Blue Jays. I think it was a stroke of genius to bring the blue back.
Oh, yeah.
I know the black uniforms just didn't get it for me. They're the Blue Jays. They're supposed to have blue on, and the fans bought into that. And probably made a couple of extra bucks when they changed the uniforms, huh?
Well, they went back to their roots also with the engraving and the script, Blue Jays on the front of the jersey. It's definitive. It's who they are.
R.A. Dickey trailing Iwakuma and the Mariners 2-0. There's another walk. 3 walks now issued by Dickey.
The 2014 Honda Civic, Canada's best-selling car 16 years in a row, and the official vehicle of the Toronto Blue Jays.
Leadoff walk to the number 9 hitter. That's never a good formula for success. Austin Jackson takes a nasty knuckleball for a strike. Jackson is 1 for 2. He singled to start the game and scored on a 2-run home run off the bat of Kendrys Morales in the first. Brad Miller has 3 steals this season. He's not a real burner.
Pick your spots. Pick your time if you want to go.
Boy, that's a beautiful shot from high out in the right field seats and looking back toward home plate. Ground ball. Reyes comes after it quickly to second for 1. Nice turn by Munenori. Kawasaki did a great job at second base. Reyes gave him a good feed, and they're able to turn their second double play of the night.
He hung in there, Kawasaki, at second base. The ball was hit to Reyes. He gives him a good strong throw, and he hung in there because Miller was right on top of him. Tough to double up Austin Jackson. He runs well, but he hit it right at Jose Reyes, who started the 6-4-3 double play.
Dustin Ackley has walked in, flied out. That's the 11th ground ball double play Jackson has hit into this year. Reyes had to come after it. Wasn't that sharply hit.
Tough to play hit and run on a knuckleball pitcher, isn't it?
Really is. You never know where it's going. Just over the glove of wind into right. Ackley pulled that pitch. He is 1 for 2. Been on base twice.
Leadoff walk, wiped out by the double play, and then Ackley keeps the inning alive. Been swinging a hot bat in this series. Stay back. Got on top of that high knuckleball.
Ackley has been a great hitter his whole life. He has a career college hitter. 412 average College World Series. He played in 3 College World Series while he was at University of North Carolina. Robinson Cano goes after the first pitch and fouls him. Cano batting .328. He's gone 0 for 2.
See the 10 home runs there by Cano. That's 10 straight years now that he's had at least 10 home runs. I think the home runs will go down playing in this ballpark, but the production's still there.
Ground ball up the middle. Kawasaki dives. It's under his glove. Ackley going to third base. Cano has his first hit. Back-to-back hits with 2 outs. He just snuck it under the glove of Kawasaki. That's the one thing. Mooney doesn't have great range.
If you can get to it, got to be able to get that glove down and get it and keep it in the infield, but it gets underneath his glove. He just didn't get it down there quick enough. Cano has his first hit of the night.
So after the double play, Ackley singles to right, Cano singles to center. Now Morales has been on everything he's looked at tonight. He is 2 for 2 already. Hit a towering home run to right and hit a line drive down into the right field corner. He is 4 for his last 4. 2 homers, a double, and a single.
Rounding in the form.
Yeah, he sure is. And you have to remember that Morales didn't sign until mid-season. He signed June 8th with Minnesota as a free agent. So it's going to take him a while, and now it looks like that timing is coming around. He was with the Mariners last year. They made a qualifying offer, and nobody bid. He didn't accept the qualifying offer and tested the free agent market, and he had no suitors until the Twins stepped up in June. It's off the glove. Cano will go to second, but Tolley is watching Ackley at third. So Cano moves up on the ball off the glove. It's a pass ball charge to Tolley. That's his 6th pass ball of the season.
Hard knuckleball. Tough to catch that one. And now 3-0 and first base is open.
And they're going to put Morales on. That's the good call. He has 4 hits in his last 4 plate appearances, so they'll walk him with first base open. Kyle Seager will come to the plate. He is 0 for 1 with a walk, but last night he homered with 2 outs in the 4th.
He's got a nice short stroke. Stayed back on that one and hit it out for his 18th home run. And we told you last time up, before he bounced into that double play, he leads this team in 2-out RBIs this season with 27.
He is tied for the home run lead with Mike Zunino. They both have 18. Boy, Tolley's got a lot of confidence catching this knuckleball. He was just charged with the pass ball, but he took that first pitch to Seager and really tried to square it up. Good numbers for Seager with the bases loaded. 412 with a grand slam.
Right on the corner. Cano is getting a huge lead at second base because Dickey's going from the windup with the bases loaded.
Lynn makes a nice play. Dickey is there, and the inning is over. Adam Lynn made a terrific play. That ball was past him, headed for right. But he was able to hang in there. Makes a nice play on the one hopper. Waits for Dickey to get to first to end the inning. Mariners leave the bases loaded. Is brought to you by the Sleeman Speakeasy. Only the notorious get in. Enter for your chance at SleemanSpeakeasy.ca.
Just happened. This could have been dangerous right here. Bases loaded and a one-hop scorcher off the bat of Kyle Seager. Adam Lynn gets in front of it, catches it, and then leads his pitcher R.A. Dickey to the bag to get the final out of that inning. That could have been dangerous, but he smothers it. Look how he throws that ball. Leads Dickey perfectly to catch, and the touch of the bag to get out of a tough situation.
Lynn had to wait for Dickey. As he turned around, he wasn't quite in position to make the play, but he made a nice play. Saves 2 for sure. 2-0 game. It'll be Bautista, Lynn, and Navarro. Bautista had an infield single his first at bat. He flew out to right in the 4th. He is 1 for 2. Blue Jays have 5 hits, but haven't been able to come up with a big hit. They have left a base runner on in 4 of the first 5 innings. Iwakuma had a 3-up 3-down second, and outside of that, everybody else has. They've had base runners on in every inning.
You're going to have to hit to beat him because he just doesn't walk anybody.
He has 11 walks all season, and he has been stingy in that department. He throws a lot of strikes, got confidence. Iwakuma is an interesting story. He was posted by his team in Japan, and 3 teams bid on him. Oakland actually won the bid. That was in November of 2010. They won the right to negotiate with Iwakuma. They had a 30-day window in which to negotiate, and at the end of the 30 days they couldn't come to an agreement, and he went back to Japan and pitched the 2011 season. Iwakuma was seeking a 3-year deal in the neighborhood of $36 million, the same contract that Hiroki Kuroda had. Daisuke Matsuzaka had the same per year value, but for a 5-year contract, actually a 6-year contract. So Iwakuma went back to Japan and hurt his shoulder. He had an off season over there, so when he came out as a free agent in 2011, his value was down and most teams backed off. He signed a 1-year contract with a $1.5 million base and incentives, and got him up around 5. And a big breaking ball, and Bautista strikes out. That's 5 strikeouts for Iwakuma.
And Seattle is glad he did get hurt, so that value was a little bit lower, and that was a chance for them to pick him up. He will pick up his 5th strikeout. That's a slider to Bautista as Jose swings right through it.
Well, Iwakuma then, after he signed, went to spring training. He was still recovering from that shoulder problem. That's why he started in the bullpen in 2012. But man, oh man, does he look comfortable now.
Started this year on the disabled list also.
He didn't make his first start until May 3rd. Injured his finger playing catch in Southern California.
Got his finger stuck in a netting that he was working out in. And he reached up for a ball and got his finger stuck in the netting. When he came down and stretched the ligaments in his finger, had to be shut down right before spring training.
He did not start throwing, and when he did start throwing, he threw a tennis ball. But he didn't start throwing a tennis ball until March 19th. So that set him back dramatically. And you know who really benefited from that injury? Chris Young. He signed a contract late after being let go in spring training, and the Mariners were scuffling for pitching with Iwakuma. They had penciled him in the rotation, and then they found out he wasn't going to be ready until May. So they went out and invited Chris Young into camp, and he won the job.
And he won the job. They were scuffling just to find 5 starters to start the season. Now they've got an abundance of pitching.
Lynn had a base hit his last time up.
I guess when you're talking about Felix Hernandez and Iwakuma, 2 pitchers, 1 and 1A, I guess the only team that can counteract that, Dodgers, maybe with Kershaw and Greinke.
The Dodgers have 4 10-game winners, and certainly Kershaw and Greinke. 1 and 2. How about Scherzer and Price?
It's not too shabby.
How about Shields and anybody of those Royals? They're pretty good 1-2 punch. Bouncing ball, big hop for Cano. Lind is retired. The Mariners have had 11 straight games where they've allowed 3 runs or less. That's a club record. And all of those 11 games are in August. Their record is tied for 2nd in the American League. They have the best team ERA, the best starters ERA, the best bullpen, and the bonus batting average. They have been dealing in the month of August.
That's where it all starts, right on the mound. And when you're leading everybody, you're going to win a lot of games. Trying to finish off a good homestand.
We mentioned the Dodgers. They have 4 pitchers now with 10 or more wins, and it's only happened once in the last 35 years that 4 pitchers have had 10 or more wins after 121 games. That was the Dodgers in 2002.
What's new? Dodgers. They got some bad news tonight, though. You see Ryu come off the mound in their game.
Yeah, Ryu has 13 wins, and he left the game with an injury. Kershaw's got 14, Ryu 13, Greinke 12. Dan Herron won his 10th last night. Down to Navarro with a 1-1 count. We mentioned that Iwakuma struck out a career-high 13 Blue Jays on the 30th of July 2012. That was his first win as a starter. He's only 33 years old. I think the perception is that he's 37, 38. Everybody thinks he's Hiroki Kuroda's age. That's not the case.
He's in great shape, too.
There's that splitter, little tapper back to the mound. Another easy inning for Iwakuma. 3 up, 3 down. They'll go to the bottom of the 6th. Iwakuma and the Mariners have a 2-0 lead. Chris Denorfia will lead things off when we come back. The end of August, the Tampa Bay Rays will be in town. They'll start on August 22nd, a 3-game series. Then the Red Sox come to town August 25th, 26th, and 27th. And finally, the New York Yankees, the final weekend of August. Yankees are in for a 3-game series. The 29th, 30th, and 31st. Derek Jeter will come to Rogers Center for a final time in his illustrious career. Call the Blue Jays for tickets at 416-341-1234 or log online at BlueJays.com and get your tickets for the home portion of the schedule to wrap up the month of August.
What do you give the man who has everything?
How about that, huh? Derek Jeter has received parting gifts as he has made his way around the various ballparks, and the Angels gave him a big paddleboard with Yankee pinstripes. The Astros gave him a pair of cowboy boots with the Yankee logo, the NY, on the cowboy boots. He's gotten a lot of different gifts around baseball. What do you think it would be a good gift from the Blue Jays?
I don't know. We got a chance to see Mariano Rivera last year get the gift, the carving.
Yeah, you got a native carving, yeah. I would imagine Derek Jeter has just about everything.
I know. That's what I said. What do you give the man who has everything?
What a career he's had. And he'll be at Rogers Center the final weekend of August. Chris Denorfia lifts one into left field for a leadoff base hit. He is 2 for 3.
The 2014 Honda Civic, Canada's best-selling car 16 years in a row, and the official vehicle of the Toronto Blue Jays.
Beautiful Safeco Field. Another good crowd on hand tonight. 32,368 Almost 100,000 fans for the 3 games, 99,612 for a 3-game series, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And the Blue Jay fans should be very proud of that number. They've had a lot to do with that $100,000 attendance mark in the 3 games. Now they'd like to see the Blue Jays come back and win it.
Yeah, they want to see a W. Give them something to cheer about.
Logan Morrison has gone 0 for 2. He's trying to extend his hit streak to 14 games. Blue Jays have turned a pair of double plays tonight. They got Seager to ground into a 4-6-3 double play in the 3rd, and Austin Jackson a 6-4-3 double play in the 5th.
Tough to advance runners against a knuckleball pitcher. It really limits your offense. You can't really sacrifice. You can't really hit and run. Very tough. And it's hard to steal against R.A. Dickey. So to beat him, you're going to have to hit him.
Kind of like Iwakuma.
Just like Iwakuma. Fly ball pitcher, big ballpark. We talked about that in the opening. It could be a tough night for the hitters.
Seattle won the opener on Monday night 11-1. Blue Jays could muster just 3 hits off of Felix Hernandez. 6-3 ball game last night. Chris Young picking up his 11th win. And D'Onofrio broke, and Dickey never went into his delivery. Now they have him in a rundown, and Lynn tags him out. Chris D'Onofrio going on the first move, but Dickey didn't move.
Trying to time up R.A. Dickey. We talked about it earlier about how he'll hold the ball at times. He'll quick pitch at times. That time he held the ball and then calmed down, stepped off, got the ball to his shortstop, and let the infielders record the out.
Caught stealing 1-6-3 for Dickey as D'Onofrio is caught. So that erases that leadoff single. Little tapper out in front of home. Tolley will go to first base. 2 down. Blue Jays will have an off day on Thursday. They'll spend it in Chicago and then pick things up on Friday against the White Sox. The pitching rotation will set up like this. Marcus Stroman will open up the series on Friday night. Mark Burley goes to the mound Saturday against his former team. And Drew Hutchison will wrap the series up, and then the Blue Jays will go to Milwaukee, but that won't start until Tuesday. But John Gibbons said he's going to keep his rotation in line. He's not going to skip anybody. He's not going to push anybody back. They're going to stay in order and take advantage of the 3 off days coming up.
They got 5 this month.
There's a deep drive to center. Kobe Erasmus ranging back. Zunino is retired after a leadoff single. 3 up, 3 down. We'll go to the 7th. Erasmus to start things off. Baseball Canada and Little League Canada. Medicine Hat, Alberta, August 16th and 17th. The venue is Athletic Park. The instructors include Roberto Alomar, Rance Mulliniks, Lloyd Moseby, and Dwayne Ward. Visit BlueJays.com/Baseball Academy for more information. The Toronto Blue Jays are proud supporters of amateur baseball across Canada. I know Lloyd Moseby started at the Hat. He had a chance to play out there. Blue Jays had a great relationship with Medicine Hat, Alberta. Early in their franchise history, my son Casey played at Medicine Hat.
All the baby Blue Jays went there,
yeah.
Right? That's where you started.
That's where you started. Started at the Hat. Great baseball tradition. So make sure you check out that clinic. It is a terrific clinic headed up by Dwayne Ward. He is the driving force behind those Blue Jay Honda Super Camps. Roberto Alomar, Rance Mulliniks, Lloyd Moseby, and Dwayne Ward will be the instructors. 2-0 ball game. Colby Rasmus 1 for 2, and he was robbed of a hit his first time up. Hisashi Iwakuma into the 7th inning. He has had 7 straight starts, 7 innings or more. Pulled foul outside of first.
We got here to Seattle and we talked about Felix Hernandez, and we're like, oh boy, we got to face Hernandez. It's going to be tough. That didn't work out. He only gave up 1 run, and then Chris Young followed that up with giving up a run. And now this guy, I don't want to say he's tougher than Felix Hernandez, but he is really tough for you to pick up the baseball.
Well, when you think about Chris Young, he allowed 2 hits last night. It's the 9th time this season he's allowed no more than 3 hits. That's the most such starts in the majors. Chris Young, 35 years old. He certainly battled injuries his whole career. But Chris Young was great. 6 innings last night, just 2 hits. To give you an idea and put that in historic perspective, the only Mariners pitcher with as many as 9 such starts, 3 hits or less. Randy Johnson had 12 games like that in '91, and Jamie Moyer had 10 in 2001. Chris Young's the only guy to join those 2.
And he wasn't even on this team in the middle of March. Came out of nowhere.
Rasmus drills this to left, but Ackley is right there. Colby is swinging a hot bat. Not much to show for it. He's 1 for 3 now. Hit the ball hard 3 times tonight.
As a pitching coach, what do you say to these guys? Nothing. You can't say anything to them. Just get out of the way and let them do their thing.
You guys are doing good. Keep it up. I don't know how you're doing it, but it's really working. 1 out. Munenori Kawasaki. Kawasaki's 0 for 2. He struck out in the 4th his last time up. The thing about Iwakuma is he's so under control. He's got a great delivery, very sound fundamental. He doesn't have as much of a hesitation as we have seen with Daisuke Matsuzaka or Hideo Nomo, but there is a little pause where he gathers before he works toward the plate.
Right over the mound. The hesitation. Everything comes out of the same slot. And when you sit here and you watch him, you're like, well, that doesn't look like he's overpowering, but he just throws quality pitch after quality pitch.
In Japan, the starting pitchers pitch just once a week. They don't play as many games. They play 144 games in a regular season. So they do a lot of fundamental work, a lot of throwing on the side, and a lot of mechanical work. Kawasaki works for the walk. That's the first walk issued by Iwakuma and the 12th issued for the season. 12 walks.
Yeah. Yeah, again, he's given up more home runs, 14, than walks this year. So he walks Kawasaki, who's faced him before. Now he's got to face a power hitter. And here comes Rick Waits.
So Rick Waits will go to the mound, and he'll be joined by the interpreter, as they have now allowed an interpreter to go to the mound to help the pitching coach explain the situation here, and everybody gathering on the mound. Baseball has become such an international sport. You got Iwakuma from Japan, Cano from the Dominican Republic, a lot of Americans, and whatever they said made Iwakuma laugh. Charlie Furbush, the left-hander, is loosening up, and if you think things get easier if you get into their bullpen, you're mistaken. This is a terrific bullpen, and they are on a historic run. Their bullpen has really been great. Their ERA at 2.37 as a unit. One out. Juan Francisco, he can reach the seats. Tonight he's had trouble making contact. He's struck out both times.
Yeah, one swing and we're going to be all tied up right here. It's an interesting, I'm thinking ahead right now. You got Josh Thole on deck, a left-handed hitter. You've got the left-hander warming up in the bullpen. John Gibbons can't really pinch hit for Josh Thole because his backup catcher is the DH.
Ground ball. Cano goes to second for one. A return throw not in time. Cano got the ball to second quickly, but it was such an odd angle that it really took Miller out of the timing of the play, and they could only get the lead run.
Couldn't get much on this throw because Kawasaki's right on top of him. Watch, here he comes. He's sliding right into him, and he can't get anything on it. So he bounces it over to Morrison. Throw into the runner. He had to make sure he got the out at second base.
So Lloyd McClendon will take the ball from Iwakuma. That will snap his streak of 7 straight outings of 7 or more innings. He goes 6 2/3 tonight. He leaves with the lead. Last night he recorded 4 outs. He allowed just 1 hit, struck out a pair. He is back into the game tonight. It's an interesting move by Lloyd McClendon, and one that you can bet before the game he was thinking about, because the Blue Jays used Deanna Navarro as the DH tonight. Now with Thole being lifted for the pinch hitter, Navarro will have to enter the game, and the Blue Jays will lose their DH.
They'll lose the DH right here because their backup catcher, you're right, is already in the game as the DH. There are Furbush's numbers, 1 and 5 with a very good earned run average of 371. Left-handers 242, righties 286. He's got a good arm, and with that, here's the move. Danny Valencia is going to enter the ballgame as the pinch hitter for Josh Tolley.
And Valencia had a double off of Furbush last night. So you can bet John Gibbons and DeMarlo Hale were talking about all of the different ramifications of lifting your catcher with the DH in the spot is the catcher Navarro. So Valencia comes off the bench. He doubled against Furbush last night in the 7th with 2 outs. So he pinch hits for Josh Tolley. Navarro will have to enter the game as the catcher, and the Blue Jays will lose their DH. But they're down by 2, and Valencia can hit a 2-run homer. Francisco's at first. First pitch, breaking ball in there for a strike. These are all of the things that managers think about as they look at the lineup before the game. If this happens, then we'll counter here, and because we got our catcher in, we could lose our DH.
So you take that risk right here, hoping for a big hit by Valencia.
The score dictates your strategy more often than not. You get a man at first base. Valencia gets a chance to hit, representing the tying run. It's the 7th inning. You can't wait around much longer.
You might not get back down to this spot.
Breaking ball in the dirt. Tolley out of the game. Cecil is ready, standing by Bob Stanley in the bullpen. So you look ahead. Dickey's probably out of the game with the catcher Brad Miller. The number 9 hitter will be the first batter in the bottom of the 7th, and back to Jackson and Ackley. Robinson, Cano, the 2 left-handers, 2 and 3 in the Mariners lineup. Three and 1. Reyes is on deck. Reyes has a double and a single tonight. He is 2 for 3.
He's looking for one fastball down and in right here.
For another breaking ball. They thought he could get him to chase that breaking ball. Danny Farquhar, the right-hander, is standing by ready in their bullpen. So Valencia, the pinch hitter, walks. Second walk of the inning. That moves Francisco to second and brings Reyes to the plate. Here comes Lloyd McClendon. He's made the call to the bullpen. Furbush had one batter. That was Valencia. He walked him on a breaking ball. So Danny Farquhar will come into this ball game. Farquhar pitched on Monday night. Pitched the 9th inning. So Furbush is out. Farquhar is in. Blue Jays have a pair on. Reyes will bat when we come back. second appearance of the series, his 48th of the season. He worked on the opener Monday night in that 11-1 Mariner win. It's a curious move, as Reyes, a switch hitter, a much better hitter from the left side. And when you look at his numbers recently, boy, he has really turned things around.
Look what he has done since the All-Star break in terms of batting average. .330, his on-base percentage almost .370. And from the left side, as a left-handed batter, he is hitting .296. Right-handed, .264. He doesn't have the power from the right side like he has from the left side. So a curious move to bring in the right-hander.
And he's had his first 3 at-bats as a left-handed hitter. Farquhar. Reyes goes after the first pitch, and it was an off-speed pitch. He was out in front. Francisco's at second. Valencia walked as a pinch hitter. A couple of walks this inning. Reyes hooks it foul, and Farquhar's ahead 0-2. He calls out the catcher. With an 0-2 count, he called his catcher out. He has a definitive plan on his mind.
He can cut the ball like he did those first 2 pitches to Reyes, right in on his hands.
Oh, 2, 2 on, 2 outs. Blue Jays down 2-0. Took a shot at the outside corner and missed. Seventh inning. Getting late for the Blue Jays. Pitch. Reyes strikes out. Blue Jays strand a pair. Farquhar gets it done. They'll go to the bottom of the 7th. Seattle with a 2-0 lead. Blue Jays fans anxious for a rally as Blue Jays are down 2-0. R.A. Dickey is out of the game. Brett Cecil into the game to start the bottom of the 7th.
It's the first time that we have seen Brett in this series. Right there, there are his numbers in 48 innings. He coming into this game, his breaking ball has been much better. He's been using his fastball. He'll cut it at times there and drop a changeup. Him being into this ball game is necessitating a move by the Seattle Mariners also. Lots of moving parts right now in this ball game.
So Chris Taylor will bat for Brad Miller, as everybody is pushing old buttons right now. Yonder Navarro has taken over behind the plate. Remember, Josh Tolley was lifted for the pinch hitter Danny Valencia. So Navarro who was the DH, now into the game as the catcher. So the Blue Jays lose their DH. Cecil is batting in the 9th spot, and he's pitching. Chris Taylor started the game last night. He went 0 for 2. He walked and scored a run. He is a very aggressive hitter. He has joined the team from the minor leagues. He was called up on the 24th of July. He had a great start to his season in AAA. He played 75 games in Tacoma in AAA and hit .328.
Brought him up when he was hot and came into this series over 400 limited at bats. But you're right, he gets up there and he's looking for that first fastball. So Brett Cecil's been throwing a lot of breaking balls here.
Bottom of the 7th. Mariners scored 2 in the first, and that's been it. The only scoring of the game. R.A. Dickey, pretty good outing tonight. He gave up a leadoff single, and then after 2 were out, Kendrys Morales hit a 2-run home run. That's the only scoring we've seen tonight. And it is an unusual night.
Unicorns.
You don't see unicorns all that often. Everybody's made their way down from Canada, having a good time. Chris Taylor's 23 years old. He gets a piece of that breaking ball and stays alive. He has moved quickly up the ladder and made his way to the big leagues. Cecil strikes him out. First out, bottom of the 7th. Cecil has bounced back a little bit lately because his breaking ball has really come back.
Got that spike curveball, and he throws it even when he's behind in the count. He's got a lot of confidence in it. The Blue Jays wanting him to throw that breaking ball more often. He comes up with a big strikeout to start the 7th.
Top of the order. Austin Jackson hits a fly ball to right. Bautista comes in quickly, and Cecil has 2 quick outs. Dustin Ackley reached base twice. He walked in the 3rd against Dickey. He also singled in the 5th. Cecil handled the 2 right-handers. Now he's got a couple of left-handers in an effort to get out of this inning. The Orioles have beaten the Yankees tonight 5-3. So the Yankees lose another game on the front-running Orioles. Yankees slipped to 8 back in the AL East. They've lost 4 in a row. Good news for the Yankees. They got Michael Pineda back, and he was good 5 innings tonight. Pitched well.
Pitched well. But they're running into a team that right now is taking control.
Well, have they ever? Baltimore has really taken control of their own fate. Darren O'Day, 1 in relief. Pillman started. He went 7 innings, allowed 2 runs on 5 hits. Pineda allowed 1 run on 2 hits over his 5 innings.
They had to put Manny Machado on the disabled list today. So that was another blow.
Chris Davis started at 3rd base tonight and hit 2nd in the lineup. Adam Jones had a 3-run home run, his 23rd. Difference in that game. Baltimore had just 6 hits, but they got 5 runs. Full count to Dustin Ackley. Robinson Cano waits on deck. Sharply hit. Another good play by Lind. He goes to the bag, and the inning is over. Cecil retires the side in order. We'll go to the 8th. Melky Cabrera will lead things off. He's 0 for 3 so far. Bautista has an infield hit, as does Lind. He's got a base hit as well. Are in beautiful Seattle, Washington, and there's the Space Needle near the downtown area, and we are over at Safeco Field. Blue Jays trying to salvage the final game of this 3-game set. Beautiful setting here, not that far from the water. Safeco Field, a terrific ballpark and a great venue, and we have seen 99,612 fans for the 3-game series. New pitcher into the game is Yoervis Medina, making his 49th appearance. He has been a lockdown setup man for Seattle.
Part of a very good bullpen for the Seattle Mariners. There are his numbers in 48 games. Medina is big, physical, fastballs between 89 and 94 miles an hour. He's got an excellent curveball splitter. You can see his numbers right there. He too is a strikeout pitcher, and the left-handers have had their biggest problems against him. Just a 140 average.
Well, that young fan hasn't had enough excitement. The Blue Jays have only scored 4 runs in 25 innings, and it kind of lulled him to sleep. Well, this is going to be the best opportunity for the Jays to get back in this game. We're in the 8th inning. It'll be 2, 3, and 4. Cabrera, Bautista, and Lind. Rally caps once again, and they have been out all series long. Melky hitless in 3 at-bats. He lined out and has grounded out twice. Medina has just 3 appearances against Blue Jays. He's worked a total of 3 innings, allowed 1 earned run on 3 hits.
You can see that big arm, another one of those big arms out of the bullpen. And it's an interesting thing that the Mariners did last year. They have one of the worst bullpens in baseball last season, and made a couple of moves in the offseason, getting a couple of veterans and Joe Bimo and Fernando Rodney, and everybody moved down a couple of slots in the bullpen, and they've taken off.
Boy, that ball just explodes down and away.
That's why he's been so tough against the left-handers with that pitch right there.
The Mariners bullpen coming into this game had a .236 earned run average. The Mariners bullpen has been as good as any since the DH era, and that goes back to '73.
Last season, as Melky strikes out, last season the bullpen ranked 29th in the major leagues with a .458 earned run average. This year, that .236 earned run average you were just talking about, that's second in the major leagues.
Only San Diego has a better earned run average out of their bullpen. The Padres pitching to a .231 earned run average. To give you an idea of historic perspective for this bullpen, the Oakland A's have had the best ERA out of the bullpen in 42 years. 1990 Oakland A's had a .235 earned run average. Seattle's at .236.
What Oakland team was that?
90.
We all know who that was.
That was the Atkin Company. The DH began in '73, but the Mariners bullpen has been terrific.
Part of the reason that they are so effective is their starters go so much deeper into the ball game this year. Oh, that curveball. That's a wicked curveball. But their starters go deeper into the ball games, allowing Roy McClendon a chance to rest guys at times, get the matchups that he wants to late in a ball game. And right now he wanted Medina to face the middle of the Blue Jays lineup.
Bautista goes around. That is filthy. 2 strikeouts. Hisashi Iwakuma goes 6 2/3. That snaps a streak of 7 straight starts with 7 or more innings. But he was in charge once again. 5 hits, didn't allow a run, walked just 1 batter, and struck out 5 to 101 pitches over 6 2/3.
No earned runs. He was in control, pitching into the 7th inning. Who were we talking to when we were at home? Was it Dustin Pedroia? He said, "Have you faced the Seattle Mariners bullpen yet?" I said, "We haven't seen Seattle at all."
Yeah, he was really singing their praises. He said every one of them throws hard, and they all have great secondary pitches. Melky Cabrera and Bautista both striking out. Reyes struck out against Farquhar to end the 7th. Now Medina has 2 strikeouts to start the 8th. Adam Lind 1 for 3 tonight. He made a great point about the starters now going deep into the game. The relievers know they don't have many outs to get.
Nope. They have thrown the 3rd fewest innings in the American League. Last year, bullpen pitched the 10th most innings in the American League. Starters just weren't giving them enough innings.
Lind has his 2nd hit of the night, a 2-out single. So that'll get to tie run to the plate. Gianna Navarro has gotten big hits for the Blue Jays all season long, and this is a big situation. He comes to the plate representing the tie run in the 8th. Navarro has only 1 at bat against Medina. He has a hit. Morrison is playing behind Lind at first. He's not a threat to steal.
That run doesn't mean much right now. He's going to guard that line. No extra base hits for Navarro.
The outfield is deep. You're going to play deep and cut off the extra base hit. Navarro is the one that matters in this situation. It's a 2-0 Seattle lead. Colby Erasmus would be next if Navarro can reach. Rasmus has hit the ball hard all 3 times tonight. He has 1 single, has been robbed on a ground ball and lined out to the left fielder. like he had another pitch on his mind.
Looked like he might have been looking for a ball out over the plate a little bit more. Medina crowded him with that fastball.
Deanna has 9 home runs. That's just 4 off his career high. He had 13 a year ago for the Cubs. Pulls this one to first. That'll do it. Medina gets out of the 8th inning. Couple of strikeouts and a hit. Blue Jays leave a base runner. Now it's time for Blue Jays Central Update. Here's Jamie Campbell and Greg Zong. Dickey started here tonight, gave up a leadoff single to Austin Jackson, and then a 2-out, 2-run home run in the first, and that was it. He settled in. He did a nice job. He pitched around the impact of those 4 walks. He threw 99 pitches, and he completes 6 innings. But the Blue Jays haven't been able to score any runs. He deserved a better fate tonight.
Yes, he did. He had base runners, but he got out with it with a couple of double plays. Made some pitches when he had to, left the bases loaded in the 5th inning. But when you're matched up against these pitchers from the Seattle Mariners, every run is important.
Seattle came into this game with 11 straight games allowing 3 runs or less. That's a club record. Robinson Cano. Brett Cecil in his 2nd inning of relief retired to side in order in the 7th. Ball and a strike to Cano. Casey Jansen loosening up in the Blue Jays bullpen. Slow breaking ball. Cano is behind 1-2. Fernando Rodney picked up the save last night. He is loosening up down in the Mariners bullpen for Rodney save number 34. He is 1 behind Greg Holland for the American League lead in that department. Cano hits it into center. Rasmus coming in. 1 down. Drive of the Game is brought to you by the 2014 Honda Civic, Canada's best-selling car 16 years in a row, and the official vehicle of the Toronto Blue Jays.
Henry Morales in the 1st inning, and if you missed it, that's it right there. The scoring tonight. He gets on top of that knuckleball from R.A. Dickey, tomahawks it into the stands in right field. Henry Morales has a single, a home run tonight. He's also been walked intentionally. He's starting to heat up.
He's been on base his last 5 plate appearances. A couple of home runs, a double, a single, and a walk. Cecil's sharp again tonight. He jumps ahead of Morales. Bouncing ball, big hop for Reyes. It's short. Morales is retired for the first time tonight. 2 down.
Brett last worked in that epic game on Sunday against the Tigers. So he's had a couple of days to recoup. He threw an inning and a third in that game. The whole bullpen, it looks like they're back to normal, I think, after that 19-inning game.
Yeah, I think everybody had a chance to regroup a bit. And you think about it, Happ went 6, Luke went 2 last night. Brad Mills pitched behind Hutch on the opener, so the rest of the bullpen has been given enough rest. Blue Jays will have tomorrow off before opening up the 3-game series in Chicago. Chad Jenkins with a terrific effort in relief in that 19-inning game on Sunday.
Look at that curveball. Ducked away from that thing. Seager thinking it was a fastball, and it split the heart of the plate. Watch this reaction from the left-hander.
Look out.
It's right there. That's when you know you've got a good breaking ball.
And throw it again. Well, now he can use the fastball down and away. Just paint it down and away, and it'll be difficult for Seager to get on it. 2 good breaking balls. It's 1-2. That was an overmatch. Seager waves at the high fastball. Cecil retires all 6 he's faced. Now the Blue Jays will deal with Fernando Rodney. It's a 2-0 Mariners lead. Carolyn Hamlet. Make sure you stay tuned, and they'll have all the baseball news. Baltimore beat the Yankees tonight as Adam Jones hit another home run. Lots of baseball news to bring you up to date, and that'll come up next right after this ball game. Fernando Rodney picked up his 34th save last night. He's got a tradition of shooting an arrow into the air after a save, and the fans are mocking him now as he's making his way. They can't get enough arrows off at him.
They're putting holes in him right now with those arrows. They're trying to put the voodoo curse on him there before he takes the mound. There are his numbers. They are outstanding. 34 for 37 in saves. Righty's just 158. He's going to come after you with that fastball and that outstanding changeup. He gave up a base runner in last night's game. That was a 2-out walk, but that was it.
He actually started the 9th inning facing Colby Erasmus, and that's what he'll do here tonight. Blue Jays are down by 2. Trying to avoid the sweep at the hands of the Mariners. They lost 11-1, 6-3, and trailed 2-0. Runs are tough to come by in Seattle. They've been outscored 19-4 in this series. Colby Erasmus makes that first pitch from Rodney for a strike. Erasmus has had a good night at the plate. He's hit the ball hard 3 times. He is 1 for 3 on the night.
Robbed of a hit by the shortstop and then hit a bullet to the left fielder.
Pops this one up over near the Blue Jays dugout and be over the dugout out of play. Blue Jays have had a real rough stretch against the AL West this year. That has been their Achilles heel. They're 12-17 against the West. There's a changeup, and Rasmus strikes out. 1 out. Now for a preview of what's coming up next on Connected. Here's Ken Reed and Carolyn Cameron. Thank you very much, Carolyn. Big tennis tournament in Cincinnati this week. Ryder Cup news, that's interesting. Tom Watson, the captain of the U.S. Ryder Cup team, talking about trusting Tiger Woods' own judgment. Doesn't sound like Tiger's going to get to play a lot, but he's going to ask him to be honest with him about whether or not Tiger thinks he can play in the Ryder Cup.
Finish up that thought you were talking about the Blue Jays playing against the Western teams this year. They have not had success, just 12 wins in 29 games. Baltimore, on the other hand, that's the difference. They have come through the West and have a very good record against them.
Kawasaki hits it off the glove. Cano is there, but not in time. Robinson Cano motioning to the dugout. He thought he had Kawasaki, and now Lloyd McClendon, the manager, is coming out of the Mariners dugout. It was bang bang at first. It bounced off the first baseman's glove. Cano came after it, and now Lloyd McClendon taking that slow managerial walk to the first base umpire, C.B. Buckner.
So they can look in and see if they're going to challenge this one. As they try to get the video replay, here it is. It's off the bat of Kawasaki and off the glove of Morrison. But there's Robbie Cano. He's there. He flips it over. But he's clearly safe.
Looks to be safe. They're going to the review. C.B. Buckner, the umpire at first made the call. You can see that ball wasn't in the glove until after Kawasaki made contact. And I think this play is going to stand. C.B. Buckner, a very emphatic safe call. This would be a very definitive view. There's the ball. Foot appears to be on the bag. Kawasaki, I believe, is safe. That ball's still moving before it hit into the glove. C.B. Buckner on the left, he made the call. Dale Scott is the crew chief. He's at third base tonight. So the two umpires listening in to New York. Fernando Rodney struck out Rasmus. Kawasaki, as we stand now, has an infield hit. Francisco is on deck, and he's got home run power.
That's why this is a very important call for the Blue Jays. One more look as Kawasaki hits the bag right there, and you don't see the ball into the glove or the glove moving. So Kawasaki beats it out, and the tying run does come to the plate.
Yeah, the umpires confirming the rule on the field stands. It is an infield hit for Kawasaki. So Francisco will step to the plate representing the tying run. Francisco did not face Rodney last night. He falls behind with a fastball 0-1.
Pitcher spot on deck. That's right, the pitcher spot is on deck.
Anthony Gose has come out to bat for the pitcher, Brett Cecil, who was into the ball game as the Blue Jays lost their DH tonight. Kawasaki was running. A ball is fouled off.
And again, the runner at first base in the minds of the Seattle Mariners doesn't mean anything right there. It's the guy at the plate. So they will elect to play behind the runner at first base and stay on that line.
Oh, and 2. Out in front of that changeup, and he hooks it foul.
Juan's got to get a changeup up, and he's going to have to recognize it out of the hand of Rodney. Anything down, he's going to have to lay off of it. But a changeup like that last pitch that was up, that's a ball that he could lose.
Rodney's had his problems with the Blue Jays. He has a 1-6 record and has blown 2 save opportunities. Francisco got a piece of that fastball. Rodney has given up 5 home runs to the Blue Jays. When you think about it, as a late inning pitcher, those 5 home runs are always pivotal. Francisco covers that outside pitch, 95 miles an hour. Rodney is a 2-pitch closer. He's got a disappearing changeup.
Throws it with great arm speed, looking like a fastball coming out of his hand because he's got that big arm.
There's the changeup lifted into center. Jackson is back. He's got plenty of room. 2 down. So Anthony Gose will come to the plate and bat as a pinch hitter in the 9th. Gose is 1 for 2 against Rodney.
He faced him last night in the 9th inning and ended up walking against Rodney. He had a very patient at bat, laid off that changeup.
Two outs. There goes Kawasaki. Gose hits it to left, and it's going to slice into the seats. Strike 2. Kawasaki takes second. It'll be defensive indifference as he just advances. R.A. Dickey gave up a 2-run home run in the first, and that was it. Kendrys Morales hit a 2-out, 2-run home run, the only runs of the game. 0-2. Ball game. Rodney strikes out Gose to end the ball game. 2 strikeouts in the inning. He picks up his 35th save of the season to tie Greg Holland for the American League lead in saves.
The Blue Jays ran into the best pitching staff in the American League out here. Iwakuma did his part tonight. Shutout baseball. Blue Jays now have to go to Chicago and face the White Sox, but they got a lesson here from this pitching staff. They're pretty good.
The Blue Jays were outscored 19-4 in this series, out-hit 25-16. Stay tuned. Connected coming up. Ken Reed, Carolyn Cameron. We'll see you Friday night from Chicago.